Okay, let's be real. There are just too many AI tools, right? Trying to keep up is absolutely exhausting. So today, we're going to cut through all that noise. We are going to build a really simple but powerful mental model that'll help you pick the perfect tool for any job every single time.
I mean, are you feeling that AI tool fatigue? Does the constant launch of new tools just make your head spin? It feels like every single week there's a new game changer, and it is so easy to feel completely overwhelmed. You're left wondering, am I even using the best one? Am I missing out on something? Well, if that sounds familiar, you are definitely not alone. Trust me. Figuring out which tool is best for which task, man, that can take months of just painful trial and error. But you know what? It really doesn't have to be that way. So, what if you had a clear framework, a simple way to think about all this? Well, that's exactly what we're building today, a simple mental model. And we're going to focus on just two main categories to keep it easy: the everyday generalists and the high stakes specialists. All right, let's start with the first group, the everyday AIs. These are the generalists, the tools you've almost certainly heard of: ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude. Now, on the surface, they might kind of seem interchangeable, but as you're about to see, they each have a very distinct superpower. Okay, first up, the OG, the original game changer, ChatGPT. Now look, while others have definitely caught up in terms of raw power, ChatGPT still holds the crown in one really crucial area that makes it uniquely reliable. And that superpower? It's obedience. Seriously. To put it simply, ChatGPT is just the best at following complex, multi-step instructions to the absolute letter. Other models, they might be just as smart, sure, but if you give them a long checklist, sometimes they decide they know better, or they just quietly skip a step. Not ChatGPT. It just does what you ask it to do. Here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Someone tested these tools with a really complex hiring rubric. It had like a dozen specific requirements. And what happened? The other models gave answers that looked right, but when they checked closely, they'd quietly ignored a few of the rules. Only ChatGPT delivered on every single one. That right there, that's the difference obedience makes. So here's your rule of thumb. When you've got a task with a ton of moving parts, where getting just one instruction wrong breaks the whole thing, that's when you want the obedient taskmaster. You want ChatGPT. But hey, obedience isn't everything, right? What if your task isn't about following a strict set of rules, but it's more about understanding a whole bunch of different kinds of information all at once? Well, that's where Google's Gemini comes in. And its superpower is something called multimodality. So what does that mean? Gemini's superpower is that it can natively understand a huge mix of media all at the same time. We're talking video, audio, images, and text. It can literally watch a video or listen to an audio file and understand the content directly. That's something other models really struggle with. And look, this chart really says it all. I mean, sure, ChatGPT and Claude, they handle text and images just fine, but only Gemini can natively process video and audio. Think about what that means. It can digest hour-long recordings or entire slide decks all in one go, without losing track of any of the details. That's huge. So your rule of thumb for Gemini, it's super straightforward. When your input isn't just text, like when you need to analyze a video of a meeting, or transcribe some audio, or pull insights from a big, messy combination of files, Gemini is the tool for that job, period. Okay, so rounding out our trio of everyday AIs is Claude from Anthropic. And if ChatGPT is our obedient one and Gemini is our multimodal one, then you can think of Claude as the quality one. So what do I mean by quality? Well, Claude's superpower is that it produces a higher quality first draft. This means its initial crack at a task, especially for things like coding or really polished writing, is often way closer to a finished product, and that saves you a ton of valuable editing time. Get this. This quote from the source material just says it all. Somebody needed to bulk export a bunch of data, and their own support team told them, nope, that's only for developers. So what did they do? They described the problem to Claude, and it wrote a perfect script in a language called Go, of all things, that worked on the very first try. I mean, that's an absolutely incredible testament to its coding skills. So here's the rule of thumb for Claude. Think of it for that last mile. Whether you need working code that just runs, or you have a rough draft that needs to be polished to match a very specific human voice and style, Claude is the tool that delivers that final layer of quality. Okay, so now we have our generalists for all the everyday tasks. But what about when the stakes are higher? what about when you absolutely cannot afford a mistake? Well, for that, we need to turn to the specialists. AIs that are built to do one specific job and do it perfectly.
And our first specialist is a tool called Perplexity. Its job is really simple. Find accurate information and find it fast. Now, it's a common mistake to see it as just another chatbot, but its purpose is fundamentally different. This really breaks it down perfectly. The general chatbots, like we just talked about, they're for reasoning, brainstorming, creative writing, building out a narrative. Perplexity, on the other hand, is for fetching. You need a specific, verifiable fact, and you need it now. Think of it less like a creative partner and more like a supercharged search engine. All right, our final specialist tool is Google's Notebook LM. And its superpower is all about guaranteeing accuracy. And it does it through a very clever constraint. Notebook LM's superpower is that it creates what you can call a walled garden. Here's how it works. You upload your own source documents, maybe a report, a bunch of research papers, a script, and it will only answer questions based on the information inside those documents. It has zero outside knowledge, which means it can't hallucinate or just make stuff up. And that is absolutely critical when accuracy is non-negotiable. Okay, so let's put it all together. Imagine a workflow like this. You start with Gemini to brainstorm ideas by just feeding it a meeting recording. Cool. Next, you use Perplexity like a surgical tool to go in and fact-check a key statistic that came up in that brainstorm. And finally, you hand that verified outline over to Claude to write and polish the perfect, human-sounding final draft. See how they all work together? But look, here's the crucial point. It's not about mastering every single tool out there. That's just a recipe for more fatigue. The key is to be intentional. Don't add a tool to your workflow just because it's new and shiny. Add it because it solves a real, recurring problem that you actually have. And that leaves us with one final, really powerful question you should ask yourself before you adopt any new AI tool. Let this be your filter against all the hype and all the noise. Just ask, does this tool solve an actual, tangible problem that I'm facing right now? Seriously, answering that question honestly will save you more time and headache than any tool ever could.